Today we're diving deep into One Piece, exploring the hints about Gear 5 during its climax and discussing the evolved form, Divine Bird Garuda. As the story unfolds, Luffy's Gear 4 is rumored to surpass the evolved forms of Gear 4, namely Boundman, Tankman, and Snakeman. But get this, in the final chapters, there's a hint about an even more evolved form called Divine Bird Garuda. I'm excited to share a detailed analysis on this potential evolution of Gear 5. If you find this discussion intriguing, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you've got fresh insights or info on this topic, drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Heads up, this video includes spoilers up to chapter 1086, so be warned. Without further ado, let's dive right in. This is my ultimate form. This is it, Gear 5. Monkey D. Luffy. Chapter 1044 had us all on the edge of our seats with Luffy's awakening of Gear 5. The moment fans have been waiting for, Luffy's awakening, is just around the corner in the TV anime series. So today we're delving deep into the potential evolutions of Gear 5. We've covered various aspects of Gear 5's evolution on this channel before. The possibility of it being enveloped in a white conqueror's haki, the fusion of abilities in haki, conceptualizing the ability, even the chance of a Gear 6. Today I want to focus on an angle we haven't explored yet, the potential form changes of Gear 5. When we talk about Luffy's form changes, we immediately think of Gear 4, right? That gave us three forms, Boundman, Tankman, and Snakeman. Starting with Boundman, it's a straightforward form where Luffy inflates his rubber body with air and hardens his muscles using armament haki. Fun fact, because his rubber body is always bouncing due to the fusion of rubber and haki, it's named Bouncing Man or Boundman. This Boundman is essentially the base form of Gear 4. Next up, Tankman. Imagine Luffy's body as a rubber balloon, inflating his muscles like an air balloon, focusing armament haki on his torso for defense and counters. When in Tankman mode, his body becomes a perfect blend of rigidity and flexibility. The defensive haki is so strong that it can nullify Cracker's sword strikes. And as for the counter specialization with softened flesh, it is so powerful they can incapacitate Cracker with one hit. By the way, in the series, we've only seen the full stomach version. Lastly, Snakeman. This form is more slender than Boundman, focusing on speed and delivering unpredictable strikes. These aren't typical traits for rubber. It can adjust its trajectory, giving a glimpse of the freedom that might be fully realized in Gear 5. In other words, the partial freedom we saw in Gear 4's form changes might hint at what's to come in Gear 5. Creator Eiichiro Oda often weaves myths, legends, and even global religious elements into his stories. This approach has given birth to an incredibly unique world filled with awe-inspiring techniques. What I want to spotlight is what Oda might have based Luffy's form changes on. My theory? It's rooted in Buddhism. That form is unmistakably the Myo-U, Hyogoro. In chapter 990, when Hyogoro saw Luffy's Gear 4 Bounceman form, he immediately thought of the Myo-U. I bet many of you have come across various Buddha statues, like Fudo Myo-U or Kundali Myo-U, Aizen Myo-U, Kane Myo-U when visiting temples. Each of these statues portrays a stern face and a muscular physique, with some even having a halo around them. The resemblance between these statues and Luffy's Gear 4 form, as drawn by Oda, is striking. These Myo-Us in Buddhism are said to guide and save the people with their fierce expressions, especially those who don't follow the teachings. But there's another crucial role these Myo-Us play. It's about subduing the three poisons in Buddhism. The three poisons are the three primary sources of unwholesome actions that humans need to overcome. These poisons are ignorance, anger, and greed. Ignorance is about losing sight of the truth and being unaware. Anger represents hatred and resentment, while greed is about having insatiable desires. In Buddhism, the goal isn't to eliminate these poisons, but to control them. In other words, it's about overcoming. Interestingly, each of these poisons is symbolized by an animal. Ignorance by a pig, anger by a snake, and greed by a rooster. So if we think about Luffy's Gear 4 having a deep connection to Buddhism, then each of his transformations might just symbolize these animals representing the three poisons. The basic Bounceman form is, as Hyogoro pointed out, the Myo-U. Then there's the Tankman form, which I believe links to the pig representing ignorance. Luffy is the man who will become the Pirate King, which means he has an insatiable appetite. Nami. In chapter 842, Luffy displayed an overwhelming appetite that left his enemies in awe. And when you think of an animal with a big appetite, doesn't a pig come to mind? Though many picture pigs as chubby creatures, they actually have surprisingly low body fat percentages. Domestically raised pigs typically have a body fat percentage around 15%, while wild pigs can even go below 10%. This means a pig's body is pretty much covered in a muscular armor. So Gear 4's Tankman can be seen as the Myo'u's transformation to control one of the three poisons, symbolized by the pig. Next up we have Snakeman, which quite literally represents the snake. In episode 895, did you catch how Luffy's arm, during his battle with Katakuri, moved unpredictably like a snake, cornering his opponent? That's right, Gear 4 Snakeman. You could say it's a snake form representing one of the three poisons that the Myo'u must conquer. As you can probably tell, Gear 4, being the Myo'u, takes on forms symbolizing animals related to these three poisons. Now, have you guys figured it out yet? The last of the three poisons, the chicken form, hasn't shown up yet, right? Let's refer to it as the Rooster Man form, drawing a parallel to the English word rooster. This rooster, which serves as the motif for the Rooster Man, particularly connects with the Myo'u and has sometimes been paired with him as a familiar. So if Boundman represents the Myo'u, then the Rooster Man must hold a significant position. But we didn't see a Rooster Man form in Gear 4, did we? Thinking about the reason, it could be that Oda-sensei is saving this form for an important moment in the future, which means Rooster Man might be a transformation we'll see in Gear 5. But hey, for the sharp-minded among you, you might be wondering, Gear 4 represents the Buddha, so it's logical to think Gear 5 might symbolize a god, given its association with Nika. So isn't it illogical for the rooster of the three poisons to come into play? It's natural to think that way. However, there are solid reasons why it wouldn't be surprising to see a Rooster Man form in Gear 5. In fact, without the Rooster Man, Gear 5 seems unthinkable. The key lies in the relationship between roosters and gods. Let's delve into three myths that highlight this intriguing connection between chickens and deities. First up, let's talk about the relationship between chickens and gods in Japanese mythology. According to ancient texts like the Kojiki and Nihonshoki, the deity closely associated with chickens is none other than Amaterasu, the sun goddess. This connection is evident in the tale of the Heavenly Rock Cave. To break it down, when Amaterasu hid inside this cave, the world was plunged into darkness. The myriad gods, in their desperation, threw a party outside the cave, hoping to lure her out. And guess who succeeded in enticing Amaterasu from her hiding? A rooster known as the Eternal Crowing Bird. From that moment on, roosters were considered messengers of Amaterasu. That's why to this day, the Ise Grand Shrine, dedicated to Amaterasu, keeps sacred roosters in its precincts. By the way, many shrines in Japan have a torii gate, which is believed to have originated as a roost for these divine messengers. Next, let's explore the relationship between chickens and gods in Chinese mythology. Chinese myths and Taoist beliefs mention a sun god called Rijun. It's said that when Rijun soared through the heavens, he took the form of a rooster. Hence, in ancient China, the rooster was seen as an auspicious symbol representing the source of life. Moreover, the rooster, with its unwavering strength, was a symbol of the sun's might. Its talons symbolized martial prowess, and its combative nature epitomized courage. For those who love sumo wrestling, you might recognize the phrase, "still not a wooden rooster." This wooden rooster is a Chinese term that depicts an unyielding, ultimate strength state. When sumo champions like Futabayama and Hakuo faced defeat, this phrase implied they hadn't yet reached their peak strength. Alright, let's dive into the third connection, which is between the chicken and the god in ancient Greek mythology. So in these myths, there's a god named Apollo. He's Zeus's son, and after he was mixed up with the Roman sun god Helios, he's been showing up in stories with a ton of different roles. Two big ones? He's the god of the sun and prophecy. And when Apollo wanted to give his divine messages to humans, guess which creature he chose? That's right, the chicken. This means chickens aren't just Apollo's messengers, they're also there to guide us with these prophecies. Now there's this ancient Greek temple in Delphi where they actually did chicken divination, basically predicting good or bad luck from the way chickens moved or jumped around. So they really were seen as divine birds. From what we've covered so far, it's pretty clear that there's a tight bond between chickens and gods, right? But did you notice in myths from all around the world, the god connected with the chicken is always a sun god? The warrior of liberation, also known as Nika, god of the sun, who made people smile. 5 elders. And in Chapter 1044, we found out that Luffy and Gear 5 are deeply connected to this very sun god. The sun, as we all know, brings the dawn. And as we've seen, chickens often play the role of messengers of gods in these stories. Pedro even said in Chapter 877, "I believe that Luffy and his crew are the ones our clan and the Kazuki family have been waiting for centuries to bring the world's dawn." So it's kind of like the role of the chicken as a herald of dawn aligns with Luffy's role in the story. In real life too, we all know chickens announce the sunrise, right? In other words, the role of the chicken is very similar to Luffy's role in the story. So, to sum things up, Gear 5 represents the Buddha, Myo-u, and it's believed that the animals symbolizing the three poisons in Buddhism are the pig, for Tankman, and the snake, for Snakeman. But we haven't seen Roosterman, representing the chicken yet. With Gear 5 symbolizing the sun god and its deep connections with sun gods worldwide, it might just mean Luffy could transform into a chicken form we haven't seen in Gear 4. Now, some of you might still be puzzled about how Gear 4's Myo-u form and Gear 5's god form connect. Well, there's another myth I didn't mention earlier which might have influenced Oda-sensei a lot, and that's from Indian mythology. Hey folks, when we talk about Indian mythology, which we've touched upon on this channel before, it's hard not to see the deep ties with Luffy, right? "You're going down to the depths of hell, Bazjulan-goon!" said by none other than Monkey D. Luffy. In Chapter 1048, Luffy unleashed his most powerful move so far, the Bazjulan-goon, to finish off Kaido. This Bazjulan is actually referring to the monkey god Hanuman from Indian mythology. I've covered Hanuman in detail in another video, so I won't dive into that today. There are numerous parallels between Hanuman and Luffy, suggesting that Oda-sensei took a lot of inspiration from Indian myths when shaping Luffy's character. But before we delve into Indian mythology, there's an intriguing aspect about the Myo-u that's worth highlighting, especially the famous Fudo Myo-u, which many of you might have seen depicted with roaring flames behind it. This halo of flames is called the Halo of Fire, and specifically for the Myo-u, it's referred to as the Flaming Halo. This fire that Fudo Myo-u carries often pairs up with a rooster in Japan, as I just mentioned earlier. Surprisingly, this flame has an official name. It's called the Garuda Flame, representing the legendary divine bird Garuda from Indian mythology. Garuda, often termed the golden-winged bird, shines like flames and can breathe fire. In Buddhism, it's revered as a protector against the three poisons, safeguarding people from worldly desires. Just a fun fact, Buddhism originally comes from India, so it's deeply rooted in Indian myths. When Buddhism came to Japan, Garuda was often portrayed as a rooster and often paired with the Fudo Myo-u. So if you look closely, the rooster in Buddhism and Garuda in Indian myths can be seen as the same entity. Now, the most intriguing part of the Garuda tales revolves around its relationship with the gods. Garuda was the mount, or Vahana, of the god Vishnu, and guess what? Vishnu was also a sun god. Connecting the dots, it links the Myo-u and rooster to Garuda and the sun god. With this in mind, while Gear 4 introduced us to Boundman, it's logical to assume that a Rooster Man might emerge in Gear 5. Now, purely speculating, if Luffy transforms in Gear 5, what could it be called? Considering all we've discussed, it might simply be called Gear 5 Rooster Man. But remember, the man form, like Boundman, was specific to Gear 4. Moreover, man in English denotes human, so there might be a slight disconnect if we're looking at a more divine transformation in Gear 5. What's noteworthy is that names like Bazjulan in Gear 5 have roots in Indian mythology. Given that Garuda is a divine bird from the same myths, it doesn't feel out of place. Plus, since Garuda is considered a divine bird, it perfectly fits the bill for a more divine transformation in Gear 5. So my prediction, instead of Gear 5 Rooster Man, we might see Luffy transform into Gear 5 Garuda. Now, let's dive into the speculated abilities of Luffy's Gear 5 Garuda. There are essentially three major abilities that come to mind. Firstly, the power of flight. Secondly, prophetic abilities. And lastly, radiant flame power. Starting off, one of the most anticipated abilities for Luffy's latest transformation, Gear 5 Garuda, is undoubtedly the power of flight. Even now, Luffy has mastered short bursts of flight. In Gear 4, he uses Moonwalk, and with Gear 5, imagine him soaring through the sky, enveloped in flames, kinda like a manga dash. Given that Gear 5 lets him manipulate the elements, it's conceivable he could grab and hurl clouds, just as he did with lightning. While Luffy is already quite nimble in the air, his current aerial mobility comes with the drawbacks of being short-lived or requiring something to hold on to. If he can freely fly in his imagination, transform into Gear 5 Garuda, it's only natural he'd sprout wings like Garuda and fly freely. This would significantly amplify Luffy's aerial combat prowess. Who knows, if Luffy acquires flight in Gear 5, he might even resemble the leg-centric Lunarians. Next up, the second potential ability of Luffy's Gear 5 Garuda is prophetic power. The ability to strongly sense an opponent's presence. This is the observation haki, Silver's Rayleigh. Seeing the future is possible with haki, Charlotte Katakuri. Now, this isn't merely advanced observation haki or future sight. While foresight and predictions can be altered based on what one perceives, prophecies often delivered by divine beings dictate inevitable events. So, in simple terms, it's not just foreseeing the future, but setting it in stone. Given that Luffy's power relates to the sun god Nika, a divine entity in the series, he could potentially be seen as an oracle of sorts. But why would this power only activate in the Gear 5 Garuda form? The answer lies in what we've discussed so far. It's the rooster's oracular abilities. In essence, only the Divine Bird can bestow these prophecies, so it's only in the Gear 5 Garuda form that this power can be activated. Alright, let's dive into one of Luffy's latest transformations, Gear 5, known as Garuda. The third ability we're going to talk about is the Flame Light power. Now, flames have always been significant for Luffy, right? After the Summit War and a 2-year training period, Luffy managed to replicate his brother, Portgas D. Ace's Fire Fist. This was achieved with a combination of Gear 2 and the armament haki he mastered. Since then, we've seen Luffy unleash multiple attacks enveloped in flames. Naturally, he continues to use this power in his Gear 5 state, but when he transforms into Garuda, the strength of his flames intensifies even further. Why? Because Garuda embodies a mythical bird that shines and radiates like flames. The term flame light also alludes to the radiant light of the sun, so it's plausible to think that the flames Luffy commands could blind his opponents with the brilliance of sunlight. With this ability, Luffy's Gear 5 Garuda wouldn't just be about fiery attacks, he could literally deliver a blazing punch with the force of the sun. Moving on, after all I've discussed about the transformation of Gear 5 into Garuda, what are your thoughts on it? I'd love to hear what you think. That's it for today. This channel posts summaries, explanations, and ranking videos related to One Piece. If you like One Piece, we would be happy if you could support us by subscribing to our channel and commenting. Thank you for watching till the end. See you in the next video.